I don't think I've ever played a game that oozes charm quite like Dodgeball Academia. From its lovable characters to its delightful gameplay to its unique art style, this is a title you're not going to want to miss. The setup is that you play as a boy named Otto who runs away from his old school to join an academy for up and coming dodgeball pros. For 8 days, you build up a team and train to compete in the final dodgeball tournament while also going to classes and solving other dilemmas. This is a generic premise, and that attribute would be instantly recognizable if Dodgeball Academia were a TV show, but thankfully it isn't. Had Otto been a protagonist in an anime, his flamboyancy wouldn't help him to seem unique, but in the realm of video games where the protagonist is often quite bland, he does stand out. This is the case for the rest of the characters as well, as they all have corresponding TV archetypes. Dodgeball Academia also has the limitation of 10 hours to tell a story, so instead of reaching for some high concept themes or providing groundbreaking revelations, it sets up a straightforward end goal early on, and the whole narrative is accented by episodic plot points that help to portray certain characters. It's an effective method of telling a story that does have some flaws in its execution. The first of which is that the simplicity of the narrative isn't complemented by the mission objectives, which sometimes feel like meaningless errands. The other issue is that there needs to be some padding to punctuate the story beats, and here, that padding comes in the form of frequent random encounters and unnecessary battles, which should make the gameplay become monotonous. Luckily, the gameplay loop is solid enough to hold up, for the most part. It takes the core principles of Dodgeball, tweaks them a bit, and adds in some ideas. Instead of getting out when you get hit with a ball, you lose some health, and instead of getting someone out when you catch a ball, your special attack meter is built up. You can also do more damage or get some sort of effect if you charge up your throw. There are some balls with their own status effects like poison, ice, or fire, and some courts with minimal gimmicks. It sounds like a lot, but not only is it easy to get the hang of early on, it unfortunately does get old eventually. Of course, this is in part due to all the padding, but it also is due to a lack of customization. There are only 6 members of your party throughout the campaign, each with a unique set of abilities, and they're all introduced at a steady rate. I still would have felt less burnt out by the end though if I were able to change up my abilities, at least to the ones that belong to opposing team members. Nevertheless, I think this game's core gimmick of dodgeball combat does pan out well. The other aspect of the gameplay loop comes in the form of exploration. Discovering new areas of and around the academy is a delight. You wouldn't expect a location such as a school to be so environmentally pleasing, and yet it is. Despite the linear setup, you can enter any interior or location at any point, which leads way to a lot of wasted time. That is in combination with the exciting rolling mechanic and the fact that you can use dodgeballs from around the overworld to either obtain helpful items or hoard them until you have enough to fill a room. However, exploration isn't always rewarding due to some frustrating oversights. Although the buildings are mostly easy to explore, it would be helpful if they had their own maps marked with waypoints, like the map of the overworld. There's also the fact that you don't heal after battles, meaning unless you planned ahead and got enough consumables, you might have to head back to the infirmary every so often after a match. And of course, random encounters might get in your way. However, these problems are remedied by how alive the world feels due to the lingering NPCs, who all have dialogue for when you approach them, and the side missions. I didn't do many of them, but their existence alone contributes a great deal to your sense of immersion. Lastly, the art direction here is phenomenal. Like the plot, it's obviously inspired by anime, even if it may seem to be more aligned with American cartoons. No matter the case, it helps to make the already gorgeous world even more enjoyable to explore. However, when it comes to the characters, I was somewhat underwhelmed. While their dialogue suggests a great deal of energy and expressiveness, the facial expressions aren't varied, meaning characters will often be crying their heart out with a grin on their face. Nevertheless, it's barely noticeable, considering you're meant to be looking at the actual dialogue, so I would say the art style is one of the game's highlights. I booted up this game not expecting much, but was pleasantly surprised. It's restrained in how it tells its story, but that makes it all the more effective. Its gameplay does get old eventually, but it's deep enough that that isn't too early on. It's brimming with charm, and in spite of some frustrating design choices and a lack of longevity, I would certainly recommend this game.